In the calm suburb of Boronia, nestled in Melbourne's east, 13-year-old Siriyakorn Bung Siriboon left her home on Elsie Street on the morning of June 2nd, 2011 to walk to school, a 10-minute journey that she had taken many times before. Rather unusually, however, she never arrived. That ordinary Thursday became the beginning of an extraordinary nightmare, one that still haunts her family, community, and the Australian nation to this day. Bung vanished without a trace, and despite years of searching, police work, community efforts, and media attention, she remains missing. Siriyakorn Bung Siriboon was born in Thailand and lived in Australia with her mother, Vanida Nid Siriboon, sister Siriborn Pang, and Australian stepfather Fred Pattison. The couple met in 2004 when Nid was on holiday in Australia, having separated from the father of her two daughters. Fred spoke a little Thai, having spent a year there on long service leave and teaching himself the language at home. In 2006, the couple moved to Thailand together, where they raised Bung and Bang, Fred starting an awning business which sadly ended up failing, and as a result he moved back to Australia. The Siriboons later joined him once he got settled in his new job as a fitter. They were a Buddhist household and wanted the girls to have a better education and to open more opportunities for their future prospects. In the 4 years since the move from Thailand, Bung had embraced her new life in Melbourne, excelling in Year 7 at Boronia Heights College and enjoying dance, playing on the computer, listening to music, including K-pop. She had even taught herself the Korean alphabet and spending time with her family and friends. She was known to be shy, quiet and kind, but knew of stranger danger and would often walk to school with her friends. When she moved to Australia, Bung did not know much English. She could converse in the language well, however wasn't yet fluent by the time she disappeared. Her friends described her as a bubbly, happy, caring person with a very kind heart, who always made people laugh. She was wise for her age and was always attuned to people's feelings, offering a shoulder to cry on if they needed it. On the morning of June 2nd, 2011, 13-year-old Bung left her house on Elsie Street, Boronia, to head to school between 8:20 and 8:30 a.m. after eating soup and rice for breakfast with her mother, Nid, and 20-year-old sister, Bang, as normal. Her stepfather had just returned from the night shift at around 7:30 a.m. Bung was dressed in her school uniform, a blue and white checked dress, and carrying a black backpack with her school books and packed lunch inside. She also wore a blue school raincoat. She left her mobile phone at home that day, but this was not unusual by any means. This particular day, Bung did not walk to school with a friend as it had been raining, and her best friend's mother had driven her to school instead. Bung was seen crossing the street from her residence and was seen by a neighbour 2 houses down, headed to school as usual. She was seen exiting Elsie Street on Albert Avenue, crossing Paisley Avenue and towards Monco Street. The final known sighting of Bung was at 8:55 a.m. on Harcourt Road, approximately 130 metres away from the school's rear gate. Despite the short 10-minute walk to school on Mount View Road, Bung never arrived. Her school did not immediately contact her parents regarding her absence, a crucial oversight that delayed the initial search for her. Teachers initially assumed she was simply off due to illness, but this was not the case. Bung's mother noticed her daughter wasn't yet home by 3:40 p.m, which was notably odd, but panic didn't set in just yet. It wasn't until around 4 p.m, when a friend of Bung's rang the residence to ask her what to wear to football practice the following day, that the family were informed that the 13-year-old had never arrived at school that morning. Fred, her stepfather, recounts that moment with heartbreaking clarity. Quote, "That's when the penny dropped. That's when we started to panic." Of living in Boronia, an area which many considered a safe haven at the time, he added, quote, "I wanted her, Bung, to grow up feeling safe, and there was no reason why she shouldn't feel safe walking to school. There were always lots of people around, particularly in the morning, kids going to school, commuters driving to work. The main bus route is near here, and there are 2 arterial roads. I certainly never had any concerns." When she failed to return home by that afternoon, Fred began looking for his stepdaughter, walking her usual route and calling neighbours. By 4:20 p.m, after realising Bung had not been with any of her friends or on the school premises, the family reported her missing to Victoria Police. She was a diligent and intelligent girl who had no reason to disappear of her own free will. Her home life and school life were not troublesome in any way. Her family and the police feared that the schoolgirl had been abducted, as she had never skipped school before, and it was completely out of character for her to do so. By all accounts, Bung loved school, excelling in mathematics, and adored spending time with her friends. As police started searching for Bung, her parents contacted her friends to see if they had seen or heard from her. However, nobody had. They subsequently searched for Bung, hanging missing persons posters on lampposts and doing all they could in their power to find the 13-year-old. Within days, the search for Bung expanded rapidly. Police, SES crews, sniffer dogs, volunteers and local residents combed Boronia and surrounding suburbs. Hundreds of flyers were distributed by Bung's family, and even social media pages were created to raise awareness of the teen's disappearance. CCTV footage and registered sex offender databases were also checked. Despite enormous efforts, no firm evidence emerged, and Knox police, who were in charge of the case, were no closer to establishing where Bung was or what had happened to her. She had simply vanished into thin air, in broad daylight, in an area that was normally busy. How did nobody see anything suspicious? A schoolboy claimed to have seen Bung walking down Chandler Road towards Dorset Road at around 3:20 p.m. on the day she was last seen. However, this turned out to be another girl. One further false sighting was called in about a girl matching Bung's description at a nearby railway station on June the 7th, but sadly, once again, it was not her. These inconsistent sightings confused investigators and further complicated the timeline. Investigators also latterly received a phone call with potentially crucial information through Crime Stoppers. However, despite urging the anonymous caller to call back, it's unclear if they ever did. Over 1,000 homes were door-knocked as police tried to piece together the events of that day. A special task force, codenamed Puma, was established to focus entirely on Bung's disappearance. Despite these efforts, the case quickly became mired in dead ends. Multiple leads were pursued, including 2 reported sightings of an Asian girl who matched Bung's description on the morning of her disappearance. One witness reported seeing a girl looking out the back window of a white Ford Falcon wagon, driven by a Caucasian male in his 50s, sporting slicked back hair and a tattoo. Another sighting involved an Asian girl in the front seat of a white Holden HQ Kingswood station wagon, driven also by a Caucasian man, but in his late 30s or early 40s, also tattooed. Neither of these leads, however, bore any fruit. One disturbing potential lead was the sighting of a green Holden station wagon seen circling the neighbourhood near Elsie Street and Albert Avenue around the time of Bung's vanishing. The car was later linked to a separate incident involving a man in a black surgical mask who approached a girl on nearby Bennett Street. This lead later turned out to be a hoax by a fellow classmate of Bung's, though it should be noted that another genuine attempted abduction had occurred just a week prior on June 21st, when a middle-aged man with greying hair and decaying teeth had tried to force a 16-year-old girl into a blue sedan on Bedford Street in Ringwood East, a mere 10 minutes from Elsie Street, where Bung lived and where she was last seen. Luckily, the girl managed to escape. It's unclear whether any definitive links were established between the abduction on June 21st and Bung Siriboon's disappearance on June 2nd. One source states, however, that the authorities determined the two cases unrelated, despite some startling similarities, but this cannot be verified. As her husband Fred conducted interviews, distributed flyers, and retraced Bung's steps, Vanida, Bung's mother, turned inward, relying on meditation and Buddhist prayer. Eventually, she made the difficult decision to return to Thailand for a planned family trip. This move raised questions in the media at the time, but police confirmed she was not a suspect, only a mother in deep emotional pain seeking comfort among extended family. It should be noted that Bung's stepfather Fred was also ruled out of having been involved in her disappearance. Several avenues of investigation were explored, even back to her homeland of Thailand, where Bung's biological father still lived. However, nothing of significance came to light, leaving the case at a frustrating dead end. Bung's disappearance not only had a significant effect on her loved ones, but also those who lived in Boronia itself, with many parents refusing to let their children walk alone to school. Evil lurked amongst them in the shadows, and for all they knew, their child could be the next to be abducted. Police later revealed that they believed that whoever abducted Bung was most likely local to the Boronia area and perhaps had a criminal history. However, sadly, this cannot be verified without credible evidence. Nobody was ever arrested or charged in relation to this case. Police did consider possible links to the infamous Mr. Cruel, a masked intruder believed to be responsible for a series of abductions and sexual assaults of young girls in Melbourne during the late 1980s and early 1990s. Most notably, Mr. Cruel is suspected in the 1991 abduction and murder of 13-year-old Carmen Chan, who was taken from her home in Templestowe, not far from where Bung would later vanish. While Mr. Cruel was never identified or caught, and his known crimes ended years before Bung disappeared, some investigators and members of the public have speculated about a possible link, due to the similar victim profile, age, and apparent premeditation of both crimes. However, police have not confirmed any definitive link between Mr. Cruel and Bung's case. Investigators exhausted all known leads, interviewing known sex offenders in the area, searching homes and brothels, and investigating internet activity, including looking into Bung's multiple Facebook accounts, but found nothing. The community remained hopeful, but no schoolbooks, no backpack, no clothing, nothing belonging to Bung was ever recovered. Over the years, police have interviewed hundreds of people and followed up on more than 1,200 public tip-offs, including a 2013 claim by a man who claimed to have accidentally run Siriboon over with his car and buried her on a local reserve. However, his story did not add up and nothing was found at the reserve. Bung still remains missing. A reward for information was posted in 2014 for information regarding her disappearance, and a substantial one, up to $1 million Australian for the capture and conviction of those involved in her suspected abduction. Authorities were hoping the reward money would perhaps coax out an accomplice or someone who held crucial information, as Victoria Police also offered immunity from prosecution in return. But sadly, this has not been the case. The reward still stands today. At the time of her disappearance, Siriyakorn Bung Siriboon was 13 years old. She is described as being of Asian origins, specifically of Thai descent, with an olive complexion and a slim build, standing at 154 centimetres or 5 feet tall, with brown eyes and long black hair. She was last seen wearing a blue and white checked school dress, a blue school raincoat, a pair of black Dunlop Valley runners, and a pair of white socks. She also carried a dark-coloured school backpack which contained her school books and her lunch for the day. If alive today, she would be 27 years old. Bung's disappearance is not a closed case. It is an ongoing investigation, and her family continues to seek answers to this day. Quote, "Somebody out there knows what happened here, and we are desperate for that person to come forward," Fred, Bung's stepfather, told the Herald Sun. "People don't just vanish off the face of the earth. We are living in hope and believe that she's still alive. It's hard that there's no news. We pray for her every morning and every night. If you know something, it's time to say something. We want her home." If you have any information, no matter how big or small, how long ago, or how seemingly insignificant, regarding Bung Siriboon's disappearance, please contact Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000. You can remain anonymous.